Have you been to a Catholic funeral lately? If so, was it the Requiem Mass for the dead, or did it seem like a canonization event? Sadly, at many Catholic funerals over the past few decades, the true purpose of a funeral has been increasingly forgotten and lost in the wave of sentimentalism, a focus on warm and gushy feelings, and the well-intended desire of family and friends to minimize the feelings of sadness and loss. However, our gazing upon death through human eyes can have detrimental consequences for ourselves and, more importantly, at this time, for the dead, resulting in a soul possibly spending longer in purgatory than they need to, or even worse, missing out on heaven for all eternity. When at a modern Catholic funeral, have you heard the following? He is in a better place. His pain is over. We will see him one day. He is an angel in heaven and looking down on us. The homily at many Catholic funerals nowadays almost always includes something to the effect that he is in heaven now. Unfortunately, the eulogies, tributes, elaborate coffins and flowers, and many sermons often tend to support the vanity and feeling of the living. Meanwhile, these living relatives and friends either don't know or often forget the true purpose for being there. Yet Our Lady of Fatima, when appearing to the three children, told them that many souls go to hell as they have no one to pray for them. The Catholic Church teaches that praying for the dead is a spiritual work of mercy, the most charitable thing you can do for a loved one in the light of the undeniable reality of the existence of the last four things, namely death, judgment, heaven and hell, is not to assume that their souls are on their way directly to heaven. The best work of charity and act of love that we can offer for the dead is to pray for them. Purgatory and the concept of purification after death are rarely, if ever, mentioned at Novus Order funerals, but really should be. The Church teaches that a person faces their particular judgment at death. There are three possible outcomes of this judgment: heaven, purgatory, or hell. To assume that our loved ones are in heaven or even purgatory cheats them out of much needed prayers. But how should funerals be conducted? In many Catholic churches today, people arrive at their parish to plan a funeral, thinking that it should all be about Grandpa Tom, the person he was, the things he liked to do, etc. In the modern church, too many funerals focus on man and not on God, on human achievements rather than the need for grace, mercy, repentance, and gratitude for all that has been received. And most importantly, the crucial need for prayers and sacrifice for the soul of the dead. We read in My Catholic Faith, funerals should be conducted with dignity and devotion. They should not be extravagant and beyond the family's means. Some have the tendency to have pompous funerals for dead members of their families, asserting that it is the last thing that they can give for their dead. This feeling is understandable, but sadly, in many instances, the offering of prayers and masses is neglected. All our energy should be directed toward prayer for our loved ones. This is the best thing we can do for them. We read again in My Catholic Faith, those who attend a funeral should observe great recollection and a serious demeanor. Unfortunately, some people attend funerals as if it were a worldly function, laughing and gossiping. A salutary thought would be to reflect that they might be the next to go to the cemetery. We need to remember that, like any celebration of the sacred liturgy, the funeral mass is primarily the representation of the sacrifice of Calvary. Secondly, the Mass is offered for the repose of the soul of the deceased, inviting prayer for the judgment he faces and for his ultimate and happy repose after any necessary purification. A priest once said, when defending the traditional Latin Requiem Mass, seen by some to be the dark and dreary funeral of times past, "It is a beautiful and gentle liturgy, so consoling and yet also sober and mindful that someone has died and that we ought to pray." He continues, "I was informed by some of my seminary teachers that funeral masses in the old rite were a very dark affair. Black vestments and somber prayers all focused on judgment were supposedly an extreme that had to give way. Never mind that the new Mass permitted black or purple vestments, the point was that we were not to use black vestments and were to wholly avoid any negative themes like judgment, purgatory, or the absolutely forbidden hell." And I must say, I find these funerals called Requiem Masses anything but dark. If there is any darkness at all in the old Requiem Mass, it is more likely due to the fact we have departed a great degree in modern times from the notion that after we die, we are certainly judged. The Requiem Mass, when rightly understood, can benefit both the living and the dead. It is not an empty show designed to glorify the dead and show sympathy to the living. This devotion is planned to help the departed soul to attain its eternal reward, as well as to teach soul-saving lessons to those left behind. And remember, fight the good fight and keep the faith.